Everybody, how's it going? I'm Sethum and welcome back to another video, folks. Today I'm going to show you everything that you need to know with regards to taming a phoenix in Ark Survival Ascended, or better said, in Ark Scorched Earth. Now, this video came about with the fact that I have been looking for guides with regards to how to tame the phoenix on Ark Scorched Earth, and all I could find was outdated content for Ark Survival Ascended. Obviously, there have been a couple of changes in Ark Scorched Earth and several changes in mechanics, and none of them were actually all that viable. So with that said, I'm going to make an updated guide for this creature to help you guys tame it. So with that said, if you enjoy this, don't forget to hit that like button, share, comment, and subscribe, and of course make sure you watch it all the way through, because I'm going to give you plenty of information about this creature. This is of course a rare creature that can be found on Scorched Earth, or the Ark Survival evolved version of it at least. Okay, so let's begin with the beginning. Finding a phoenix. Now, there is a chance of finding a phoenix when it's not a heat wave. However, the best way of finding a phoenix is during a heat wave. Now, of course, heat waves will be one of those weather events that will potentially kill you if you're not prepared. So do have a tent with you, and it might take some time to actually find a phoenix because of course they are rare. You can also use a parasaur set to detect enemies, and you can potentially find it in the sand. So I've got here a parasaur to demonstrate. This is what it would probably look like. Of course, as you can see, it does have the little circle above it. Now, of course, later on with newer releases of content, things might change about. It might become difficult to realize that it's a phoenix or whatever creature is around there. Of course, this can also be buggy. You can see it's right there. So normally when a heat wave goes away, the phoenix turns into ash and falls to the ground, and so that is what we're looking for. This, however, in my opinion, is not very effective with regards to taming a phoenix. Just wanted to show you that this is of course a solution. I know there's a phoenix here because I saw it, but if I didn't know there was a phoenix here, I wouldn't know exactly what it is. So I'm going to show you another way of actually finding and tracking a phoenix. Now, the best way to do this is to wait for a heat wave, and when a heat wave comes up, I'm going to show you the animation of the phoenix popping in and what it looks like. I'm also going to show you the animation of the phoenix disappearing and turning back into ash and falling to the ground, so you know what it looks like. So there we go, we've got a phoenix. It's popped into existence with the heat wave. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get up close to it. For this, of course, we'll need a fire wyvern, breathe fire on it, and that's pretty much it. There's no point in trying to tame it whilst it's up in the air. It's a very difficult thing to do. You're welcome to try if you want to, but chances are that you will fail before the heat wave goes away and all the taming progression will go away. Obviously, with this particular creature, you don't lose taming effectiveness, but yeah, it's just no point. So from now on, I'm just going to follow it until the end of the heat wave. And so I've been following it for around. The heat wave tends to last about 30 minutes, so it's coming to an end. I know it's coming to an end because my Jerboa, which I have on my shoulder, is telling me that the weather's changing. Okay, there we go. So that's what happens when the heat wave goes away. You can see it turns into ashes and it falls to the ground. Now, with the previous version of the game, you could see the ashes for a couple of seconds before it disappeared or despawned, but it is basically underground. But with me basically starting the tame like that, I have no tracker on it. So basically, once the phoenix has dissipated and fallen to the ground, you will always have a tracker. This is more accurate than the use of a parasaur, at least in my opinion. And with that in mind, it's time to build a trap. The reason we're going to do this, of course, is because we want the phoenix to stay in place. We don't want to waste stamina on flying around trying to keep up with it. So let me just show you what's going on here on the ground. You can see right there, this is a phoenix that I have tracked. So I've got a few pieces here with me. I'm going to show you how to tame it, how to build a trap. Now, in the old version of the game, the phoenix spawned in at 5 walls height during a heat wave. That has of course changed with Ark Survival Ascended, and it's somewhere between 2 and 4 wall pieces height. So with that said, we're going to start building the foundation for the trap. I like to start off with the center foundation right on top of the Phoenix, and then I'll do this right here. Now you'll see the purpose for this. You can of course build it out of whatever materials you want. Technically the Phoenix won't really be aggressive towards the structure, so it doesn't really matter. For this I'm using metal pieces because I've got them, and yeah, of course I can always pick them up, so it's not really a waste for me. Okay, so now remember what I said earlier with where the Phoenix spawns height wise. Now I know this because I have tested it quite a few times. It's taken quite a bit of time to test it. So we're going to go with the door frames. As you see there, we want to snap it onto the lowest or the cross basically of the foundation. So we're going to go 2 walls high, as you can see right there. Now that should be the lowest point, or just below the lowest point of the spawn area of the Phoenix. I like to use 2 walls as a buffer space just in case. Basically this trap, I'm just going to forewarn you, might be slightly more expensive than what you see in other videos. However, you don't really want to be kicking yourself in the rear end because it's spawned outside of your trap. Now of course you can use ceilings as I'm doing here, although I find this to be a bit glitchy, so I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to pick these up whenever I can. Let me just try and do this. There we go. Hello. Okay, so instead of using the ceiling bit, we're going to use the trapdoor ceiling pieces like that. I find these to work better from all of my testing, and what I mean by that is it reduces the chances of the Phoenix's hitbox being pushed below the ceiling piece. So as it spawns in, there's a chance that it can be pushed down, but because we're using the trap door pieces, that does not happen, or it's more consistent. We're going to go 2 walls high and then just repeat that above that. Now this should normally be the perfect height for the Phoenix to spawn in. Now, I like to give it plenty of room. Now this is of course Ark, and Ark can be glitchy, so I like to work with room for error. We're gonna basically go another 2 high just in case things go wrong. You know, if it does spawn above the top layer of the ceilings, it's basically a double basket. If I miss or something goes wrong and it spawns just above the top ceiling, I still have another backup cage where it can spawn into, so it just gives me that extra bit of security. It's one of those things. The Phoenix is a rare creature just like the unicorn. It makes it even more difficult to tame with the fact that we're waiting for a heat wave. Heat waves don't happen very often, and personally speaking, I don't want to be kicking myself in the rear end for missing the Phoenix and having to wait God knows how long for another heat wave to spawn in. Now, the next thing we need to do is set up a platform for our Wyvern, and the reason for that is in order to tame a Phoenix, we need to set it ablaze. You can do this with flaming arrows, but they do damage. You can use a flamethrower, or the best option will be a Wyvern. Simply because we are not doing any other type of damage to it. So we're going to set the platform on what the Wyvern's going to sit on. One ceiling piece, one wall piece, my apologies, lower than the one we built for the trap. That should allow the Wyvern to fit in, and so that is what it should look like. Of course, because it's so low to the ground, I might potentially have to contend with creatures like the snake there. On the second layer, I'm just going to do it at the height of the, I suppose, ceiling stroke floor, as you see here. So if it does spawn above the first layer of the basket, I can land with my Wyvern there and breathe fire on it. So that is kind of how this works, just in case. This is just like the backup plan. I need to deal with these guys because they'll cause problems, so I'll just quickly do that. Oh god, it brings another one. Never mind. Hold on a bit. Yeah, there you go. Now, one thing to know about the Phoenix is, as I said, we tame it by setting it ablaze. The more damage you do... Oh, here we go, got another one. Jeez. Yeah, so what makes it, or helps tame the Phoenix quicker, is the amount of damage that we do. So I personally recommend using a Fire Wyvern with plenty of stat points put into damage. That will make the tame quicker. Of course, we're going to close it all around with the door frames, as you can see right there, so that allows us to see inside, but also to breathe fire on the wyvern. Of course, you can also use a couple of other tricks when taming the phoenix, but we'll get to that later on in the video. So I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here. There's no rush, unless of course we have another heat wave coming in, which hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm not really seeing 2 heat waves back to back, but this is Ark at the end of the day. Also, I do realize this video might be potentially long, but I do want to show you in detail what I'm doing here, because it is effective, and I have spent a lot of time trying out various types of traps and ideas. So this is what it will look like when it's pretty much finished. So as you can see, we've got a, well, 2 traps, one layer on top of the other. I'm going to extend the platform at the top, just because if the phoenix does end up being pushed or spawning on top or on the top layer of the trap, I do want to be able to land my wyvern there. Wyverns, if you've ridden them, you know that they can be a bit derpy with regards to landing on such surfaces, so I do need to kind of extend out and make sure I've got plenty of room. Last thing I want to be doing is wasting my time trying to land a derpy creature like a wyvern on a platform that's too small, and then having to fiddle about trying to widen it. It's just wasted time in my opinion, so I'd much rather do it now than during the heat wave. Okay, that should be good enough. Now, this is the trap itself. However, I'm gonna show you something else as well. So I've brought with me some air cons, and of course I've also brought with me a windmill and a bed. The reason for that is, of course, the heat wave will slowly kill you, so to prevent that from happening, we need the air cons to keep us cool, and of course a bed to respawn on. The air cons don't work without electricity, so a windmill will provide us with the electricity. Also, I've got some ladders here, so if I do, say for example, if it does spawn on top and I end up falling off the edge for some odd reason, I can always get back there. Just making sure I've got every safety precaution. As you can see, my wyvern's head does fit nice and snug here, so I can breathe fire on the phoenix if it does spawn down here. Now let's set up the air cons, and I'll show you how I set these up, just so you guys can see what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna get off so you guys can see what's happening. So I want to set the air cons basically close to, say, around here. Basically that should be below me when the phoenix is spawned in, and it should provide me with the cool air to basically counteract the effect of the heat wave, which would otherwise kill me. I think 3 should be sufficient down here. I think 4 will do. That's fine, that'll be fine. The only reason I put an extra one down there is just because I know how many I've got in my inventory, so I want to try and spread them evenly. At the top here, we'll repeat the exact same thing. Turn this around. I don't know why it's wanting to place that way. So I want the air being thrown at me, not away from me. Like that. There we go. 4. So that should keep us alive. Should it fail, of course, we need a place to spawn. Actually, I shouldn't have put that there, because that is where the ladder is. Whoopsies. Mistakes do happen. Okay, let me put it on this end. So the turbine should provide us with electricity for the air cons, and here we have the bed. Now all we need to do is wait for a heat wave, and we're pretty much ready to go and tame a phoenix. Alright, I'll see you folks in a bit when a heat wave is about to start. Okay, so this is what my trap looks like. The important part is having the 2 baskets on top of each other. You can use whatever materials you want. It doesn't really make a difference. The phoenix is not aggressive towards structure, so you don't need to worry about that. It is a bit expensive, but do bear in mind this is a rare creature and it can be difficult to tame. This is the most effective trap that I have found from all of the ones I've tested. So theoretically, this phoenix should spawn in between the 2nd and 4th wall in terms of the height, or door frame better said. Sometimes it can get pushed through the 4th wall height. That's why we have the one above it. So you can lay down oil jars and then use a flaming arrow to set them ablaze. This would eventually, if it does go into them, help you tame it quicker. Remember, the more fire damage we do to it, the quicker we tame it. but if you do have a wyvern, you should be able to tame it within the Heatwave. Now remember, it's very important that the wyvern has a lot of damage, because that is what will give you more taming on it. You may need to occasionally reposition yourself. I do have increased taming rates, but I think it is possible to tame it within the allocated time for the Heatwave, which again is 30 minutes, as long as you've got a decent wyvern. Now this is of course if you're doing the solo. If you have tribe mates, you can have tribe mates both breathe in fire on the Phoenix, which will of course increase the speed at which it tames. But I'm doing this by myself, so I want to show you what it looks like. And obviously I do want to manage my wyvern stamina, because I've put many points, or spent a lot of points into damage for this particular wyvern. It just means that I've had to sacrifice those points from other areas such as health and maybe a bit of stamina. Of course this would then make this a damage based wyvern, which is good. As you can see, the taming progress is going quite nicely. And as you can see, the air cons, both the ones above as well as the ones below me, has removed a flame, which would be a flame icon in the lower right corner of the screen. And normally I should have two. I only have the one that indicates that there's a heat wave. In other words, I am not going to be losing health because of this, and that is why this trap is designed this way. But also with this being Ark, by having the, basically I call this little cage area, I call it a basket. I don't know why, it's something that I've always called it, but I've also got a backup basket on top of it in case it ever does get pushed through the first basket. It's just a little backup thing. It's something I learned a long time ago in Ark Survival Evolved, that is best to do with the Phoenix, which I've carried over. And from all my testing that I've done, I have noticed the odd occasion where for some odd reason the Phoenix does like to get pushed through the top layer. So by having that additional layer of let's call it assurance, it just means that this Phoenix is not going to be roaming around. So I've got it trapped, and I can actually focus just on taming it and not getting upset about missing it. Funny enough, this is Scorched Earth. It's meant to be a desert biome type of environment, but I find that it rains more than we get heat waves. And so for that reason, with heat waves being rare, this being itself a rare creature and somewhat challenging to tame, unless you use a trap like this, I don't really want to miss the opportunity of taming it, which is why this trap is built this way. It's basically, from my tests, I've never had a problem with it. I've tested it over and over again. I've tried other options. Of course, you can simplify it and try other things. What is important to remember about the trap is you want to build the first layer of ceilings at the 2-wall height, with the top layer of the basket, if you're going for one basket, at 4 walls height. Obviously use a door frame so you can breathe fire through them, and if you just want one basket, that's fine. Do it at your own risk. I personally recommend having 2 baskets just in case. You don't really, I mean, you're gonna be regretting it if it does pop through it, which is a possibility. I have seen that happen. It's not very consistent, so my recommendation is go with 2 baskets layered on top of each other, just for that extra added security. And with that said, as you can see, the taming process is pretty easy. I still have plenty of time on the clock. I am pretty much nearly tamed. I could have cut to the end, but I want to show you the whole process so you can get an idea of how easy this makes my life. So I'm just waiting for some stamina here. There we go. And that's pretty much it. This is, by the way, a 150 Phoenix that I'm taming. The reason for this is I wanted to show you everybody that you can do it within one heat wave if you choose to do so. I'm not sure exactly how that would change on official servers, but I think it is possible from what I'm seeing. Obviously, having multiple players or multiple tribe mates helping you with this process would definitely be a massive advantage. Even if it's putting down oil jars and setting them ablaze. There we go. Also, it's important to note here, I might as well mention it, you can just set it ablaze if you do find it on your travels. If you do find the Phoenix on your travels, you can just set it ablaze and then leave it and forget it and come back to it and build a trap. It does not, the little icon does not disappear, and no one else can tame it unless they kill it, of course, and then another one spawns in. But there we have it. We have a tamed Phoenix. So what can the Phoenix do? Well, it's got a couple of abilities. First things first, it likes to eat sulfur. It then poops pearls, so it'll poop either silica pearls, which is most common. It can also poop black pearls. It can spit a fireball, which does do a decent amount of damage. Let me try and do this. That's what it looks like. It's pretty cool. I like the animation for this. And then it also has a blaze feature. So the blaze feature is basically an ability that makes it fly really fast, and anything it comes into contact with, it sets ablaze. So let me just do that. Also, as you can see, I'm hoping it'll happen, stuff in its inventory will be cooked. So if you put prime meat or raw meat, it will cook it. It can also smelt in its inventory, and it does that passively. It is a bit weird with regards to aiming the fireball, but with a bit of practice you can get the hang of it. Let me show you the blaze feature as well. So also, this is another thing it can do. It can actually land. The one in Ark Survival Evolved could not land ever. So it is nice that they've added this. Let me show you the blaze feature. So basically, we can basically fly at a speed, target this. Well, okay, I kind of missed that one, but you get the idea. It'll set it ablaze. It's a bit difficult because the terrain is not all that straight. I'm going to try and blaze something here. Let me do that, for example. There we go. That's pretty much how it works. I normally like the blaze feature for the flight speed because it does make it really fast and you can traverse the map really quick with it. And that's pretty much it. That is what a Phoenix does. Definitely a cool creature to have. That is it for this video, folks. I hope you have enjoyed and found it useful and informative. I do realize that this was a bit of a long video, but there was a lot to cover. As you can see right there, that is the silica pearl that it pooped out, as I said. But this is one of these creatures. It's very rare to find, very difficult to tame, and I wanted to make sure that I give out the most information so that your tame, should you find one of these creatures, goes as flawlessly as possible. Thank you all very much for checking out this episode. If you've enjoyed it, please don't forget to support it by hitting that like button, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, until next time, stay safe, folks.